my Capricorn friends. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer, and I'm here today to go through the year 2025 month by month and reveal some of the astrological dynamics that I think are going to be the most influential for you this year. The houses of Pisces and Aries are being lit up, specifically Pisces, the first part of the year. So this is very significant. This video is based on Capricorn Rising. If you don't know your rising sign, you'll want to go to one of the free birth calculators on the internet. You just need your exact time of birth and location to determine that information. So let's jump in because January starts off with a bit of a bang. And that bang is left over from December. We have an opposition between Mars and Pluto. Mars is retrograde in Leo. Leo is your 8th house of transformation, of other people's money, of debt, taxes, inheritances, big finance, of sex, of the deep psychological imprint that rules humans. And then we have Pluto in Aquarius, and Aquarius is your 2nd house. This is a money axis. The 2nd house is the money you make for yourself, the money that you make, or the resources that you acquire, the possessions that you acquire as a result of your own skills and talents. And now we see Mars retrograding in your 8th house in an opposition to Pluto. And these two are literally, they have been battling it out for quite some time. But the last time they dueled, it was when Pluto was in Capricorn, Capricorn being your 1st house. So now, yeah, Capricorn, your 1st house. Okay. Because now with Pluto moving into your 2nd house and wanting to revolutionize and to move into the future, to use your history to build upon versus tethering you and pulling you back. Mars, on the other hand, is still full of anger and resentment in some ways. There's something harboring underneath, and Mars is about to go back into Cancer, your 7th house. And Mars is not necessarily the most, doesn't necessarily enjoy being in Cancer. It is in fall. It is where Mars has to be most aware of other people's feelings and be cooperative and exchange energy and be a harborer of the we versus the me. And so this is a pretty significant way to start the year. I'm going to go into even further detail about this in the monthlies. But for now, just be warned or be aware, prepared that people will be potentially cranky and triggering. Very triggering. We will see in January the nodes shift from the Libra Aries axis into the Virgo Pisces axis. The North node will be in Pisces and the South node will be in Virgo. Pisces is your 3rd house of communications, and Virgo is your 9th house of beliefs and expansion and diversity. So this is going to be pretty significant. It's also a health axis. So being on the axis of your mental processes, it's going to illuminate how you as a Capricorn, how you process information, what kind of information you take in, the type of people that you surround yourself with. And it could very much bring up a real yearning in some ways, especially with that 3rd house being Pisces, to have a stronger connection with the divinity within. And the Virgo energy will sort of ask you to be egoless in releasing any criticisms, any false obligations or duties that are no longer supporting your growth and your wealth and your good luck and your expansion. So that's important. We will see Uranus go direct in Taurus, where it has been for the last since 2017. It's about a 7-year transit, 8-year transit, depending upon retrogrades. Pardon me, I'm shedding my hair. This has been going on for quite some time. Taurus naturally rules money, naturally rules the 2nd house. Here we see it, your 5th house of romance, your 5th house of your personal expression, your enjoyment, your pleasure, fun, laughter, frivolity. So we're going to see the last degrees of Uranus going through this Taurus energy before it moves into your 6th house later in the year and then retrogrades back into your 5th house for the last time for 84 years. So this is going to be a significant energy shift this year. And that's moving into your 6th house. That is also a house traditionally of health ruled by Virgo. And now we see that the nodes are on an axis that are going to require you on some level to be egoless, to broadening your perspective, to allowing your ideologies to further evolve as your awareness becomes more prevalent in your mind, what you become focused on. And Pluto was doing that as it was moving through your 1st house. We will see Venus, Saturn, and Neptune and the North Node all convene in Pisces. Venus is going to dip her toe into Aries in February and then retrograde back into Pisces. So we're going to have a very strong concentration of planets, especially in April and May, in your 3rd house. Let's go on to February, where Jupiter will turn direct in Gemini. Gemini is your 6th house of work, of health, of processing things, what kind of, I think of it this way. Virgo is known for details. Virgo is known for having systems, solutions, being able to go in and methodically analyze a situation. So now we overlay that same energy on Gemini. And so again, I think for Capricorn, your physical health will be very much revealed to you over this next year by your mental health and how you process your obligations and responsibilities and balance that with fun and frivolity and laughter and romance and joy. We will see Mars go direct in Cancer. Cancer, again, is your 7th house of contractual partnerships, both marriage and professional partnerships. It's also the house of peace, the house of harmony, the house of cooperation, the house of fairness and balance. So as Mars moves through this house where it's not very comfortable, again, having to be more aware of other people's emotions and how Mars is expressing itself. Now, Mars is going to come into another opposition with Pluto pretty soon. So we have to, being aware of that's going to be it's a good way to lay the groundwork for the highest vibration of these planets while they're in an opposition. Excuse me, my mouth is dry. We will have a stellium in Pisces. Again, Pisces is your 3rd house. I'm going to say that over and over again because that 3rd house really rules so much of our everyday activities. It's our workmates, our teammates, all our communications, from the way that we get our information through the media, whether we read a newspaper or we listen to podcasts or we watch television. It's all about the roadways, the sidewalks, everything that the human does during their everyday activities. So now we see the Sun, Mercury, Saturn, Neptune, the North Node, and the Moon, all in this concentrated energy for February and moving into March. Speaking of March, we have our first eclipse season. We'll have a full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo, and then we will have 2 weeks later a new moon partial solar eclipse in Aries. Aries is your 4th house of home, hearth, of the maternal experience traditionally. It's the house of your country of origin, and it will be the last new moon eclipse on the Aries Libra axis for quite some time. So it's a good time to plant seeds. It's also a period of time when the things that the awarenesses we come into, the intentions we set, they have a 6-month influence. So they are really very powerful points for the moon. We will see Neptune enter Aries. Again, Aries is your 4th house of home. It will remain there for about 14 years, but first it will tip its toe and then retrograde back into Pisces. It's kind of significant that it's the 4th house because Neptune has not been in Aries since 1862 when the United States experienced the Civil War. And I think that's significant because the 4th house rules the country of origin. Aries rules the military, so does Capricorn. So there could be a real call for you to be aware of the spiritual warrior within you, the peaceful warrior, a new perspective on how to resolve conflict. And that may have a lot to do with the home and the people that raised you, or the impressions they left upon you if they're no longer here on the earth. Venus and Mercury will both retrograde in Pisces. I think this is significant because Venus is the exalted in Pisces, and she's going to be hanging out as she retrogrades with Neptune and with getting close to Saturn. And all of this is just bringing in, this feeling of, what do I think about myself? What do I think about my ability to make money? What is my self-talk? What are the thoughts I have when my mind is running on a loop? Because Mercury rules the mind, Venus rules self-worth, Venus rules partnerships and money and pleasure and comfort. She rules the pillows and the couches and the items you have around your home, your possessions. So you're going to be really revisiting what's important to you and what has been erosive, and also how to use whatever has been erosive. That could be the Pisces energy, sometimes feeling invisible. It's also a house where the subconscious can make decisions and rule us. We're not even aware of it. It just seems normal and realistic, but it's really a perception. So this is all going to come into play. In April, Mercury and Venus will both come direct. And now we're just seeing this stationing as they move direct in the sky, sort of anchoring in this very strong energy because it's coupled. In the Christian churches, they will say where three or more are gathered, this is where God is. Where three or more planets are gathered, there's a lot going on, and it's very powerful because they play off of each other. So we have Mercury and Venus convening with Saturn in the North Node, and in some respects on their way to meet with Neptune again. And Saturn and Neptune are about to come in a conjunction and spend the rest of the year in a summit back and forth between Aries and Pisces. But we'll get there in a minute. We also see Mars re-enter Leo. This is where that opposition to Pluto begins again. And, the interesting, pardon me, my throat. I've been recording a lot of videos. Pluto in opposition to Mars is an interesting dynamic because they both rule Scorpio. And they both have this malefic sort of criminal energy, sort of rebellious, I'm not going to take your nonsense kind of stuff. But now they're arguing with each other. And I think part of it is because Mars just wants to move on, doesn't necessarily want to let go of his resentments or anger. And at the same time, Pluto's like, how do we really get anywhere if that sits underneath all of us? So here we're talking about your eighth house, where they both naturally rule. Leo is your eighth house where Mars is. And then there's that second house. So this could a lot have to do with how you make money, how people have power over you, how they psychologically, inadvertently, potentially, unknowingly trigger your sense of duty and obligation, and you end up on somebody else's train instead of your own. It could be that could very much, because your second house is Aquarius, and that's an independent, moving yourself forward based on your skills, on your talents, on using your voice. So that's going to be pretty significant for quite some time. And it feels like it's been going on forever, to be honest, the Mars-Pluto opposition. In May, Saturn will enter Aries. This is where both planets, Neptune and Saturn, start to come very close together. They are both going to retrograde. So as they enter Aries, they're also not moving. Well, Neptune doesn't move very quickly anyway, but they're slowing their roll. So this is going to be an interesting dynamic. Saturn takes about 30 years to go around the Zodiac. About, depending upon retrogrades, it can take anywhere from 28 to 30 years, I think, to go around the Zodiac. I remember correctly. Oh, let me look. I have my little notes here. Yeah, 29 to 30 years, about 2.5 years in each sign. And so this is going to be a significant transit. Now, let me say this. Oftentimes people will talk about Saturn not being comfortable in Aries because Aries is very move forward. It's all about me. Saturn is about obligation and duty. And here I disagree because Mars is exalted in Capricorn, and um, I can't imagine that Saturn would not be a welcomed guest in Mars's home of Aries. But here there is a cooperative component of Yoda and Luke Skywalker, of Obi-Wan Kenobi. So Saturn is honing Mars's skills. And when Saturn moves into the house of Aries, it tasks Mars to be a peaceful warrior, to understand his own fears so that those fears cannot be capitalized on by his enemy. So this is a very powerful transit for all of us. And for you, it's going to hit your fourth house of home. So you're going to be revisiting what you feel about, how you were raised, how you raise yours, if you're at that stage in life. It's a big transit. In May, Pluto will retrograde from 3 degrees to 1 degrees Aquarius until October 2025. And during that time, we will see Mercury and Venus both come into oppositions with Pluto, but we'll address those in the monthlies a little more succinctly. In June, Saturn will be conjunct Neptune in Aries. This hasn't happened for many, 184, 164 years, if possible. I don't know where Saturn was back in 1862, but they couldn't have met again like this before. So we are going to see Saturn ruling government and authority. Your ruling planet is in play here, big time. And you're going to get to really revisit what authority means to you, what government means to you. And I don't necessarily think just the government that you live under, but the government of your own homes, your own families. I think my family is totally political, man. As people drop off, you should watch some people who feel insecure buddy up against the people they think are the leaders of the family pack. And then they start exterminating the other people. It's so weird. But anyway, I digress. We also will see Saturn in Aries making a square to Jupiter in Gemini for the third time. This kind of sounds on the onset that it's a sextile, but it's not because of the degrees. And this is kind of a contraction versus expansion. I think Saturn has a little bit more of an edge here. Just because Saturn, I think, is comfortable in Aries. Jupiter is in Gemini, and it has to really look at the details of how to implement those big ideas to create wealth and to, focus on the expansion that I want. So I think that this is all, we're seeing for Capricorn right now, as we're getting halfway through the year, such a concentration in your second house, yes, Aquarius, third house and fourth house. It's going to be a big year for that for you. Now let's go to, and I want to say one more thing about Saturn and Aries squaring each other. As it being the third time, this is the first time they're both direct. The first time I think Saturn was retrograde, the second time Jupiter was retrograde, and now they're both direct. And this is really an opportunity to take my history, Saturn, be brave, Aries, and look at whether or not Jupiter, my beliefs, serve my everyday life, Gemini, and my thoughts. And in no short order, they will trine each other. So we're going to get to capitalize on the epiphanies of the tensions of this square brought forth. Jupiter will enter exaltation of Cancer, your seventh house of partnership, for those of you that have been looking to have more harmony, more peace, more joy, more love, more fun, more expansion in your partnerships. You have a whole year of that. It's going to be so much fun. But again, planets don't make it happen. They only set the tone for you to make it happen. So the braver you are to address whatever fears you have, that have that are involved in partnership, whatever responsibilities you may infer there, you may, find a new belief system showing up. I think it's very exciting. In July, we will see 3 planets retrograde. We already have Pluto is retrograding, but we'll have 3 more joining the party. Neptune will retrograde in your 4th house of Aries on July 4th until December 10th, going from 2 degrees of Aries to 29 degrees of Pisces. This is very significant because Neptune will not be back in its rulership for another 164 years. So as it sits at that 29th degree, when it stations, as it retrogrades and then moves forward, it's essentially very, 1 degree from the world axis. There's a new birthing from a spiritual perspective. Again, I keep seeing Dan Millman's book, The Peaceful Warrior, whenever I look at Saturn and Neptune or Neptune and Aries. So that's what I think is being offered to review how to implement those things. We will see Saturn retrograde from July 13th until November 28th from 1 degree Aries to 25 degrees Pisces. Again, in your 4th house of home, of hearth, of country, of origin, of your nurturing, of your maternal experience. Mercury will retrograde for the 2nd time in the year on July 18th till August 11th, going from 15 degrees of Leo to 4 degrees of Leo, your 8th house. So we're seeing quite a bit of action going around this is a money access, lot going on about money for you this year. And finally, in July, Uranus will enter Gemini. Gemini is your 6th house of work. There's a liberating factor here. There's a rebellious factor here. This is also a house of your health. And again, I want to kind of, I briefly touched on this when I talked about January, but I do think that your mental health, your fears, your obligations, your responsibilities that feel heavy and burdensome will come up for review as to whether or not they're actually your bags to carry or not. And if they're not, it will serve your good health to let them go or to let them go back to their original owners. In August, I think this is so significant. Saturn retrogrades, Neptune retrogrades in Aries all month. They don't get into Pisces yet. So there's a strong feeling of like, I don't know, it's almost as if as they go back, there's an acute awareness of the energy change. Both planets have the sudden, oh, wow. Oh, we went from water to fire. We went from feeling invisible to the self. The 12th house of natural 12th house of Pisces, again, your 3rd house, is a house of the self-undoing, of the unconscious, of my soul's history. So I really think that this is significant because it literally lasts all month long. Venus and Jupiter are both in Cancer now, and they will become exact on August 11th at 13 degrees. I think this is a fortuitous time to take advantage of Venus, the planet of love and partnership in your 7th house, and Jupiter, the planet of expansion. This is just yummy all the way around. For those of you that are already in a relationship, you may find yourselves just, really on fire. For those of you who want to be in a relationship, being intentional the first part of the year to tee up for this time can really see you manifest something pretty powerful. Mars will enter its detriment in Libra. Now, I'm kind of starting to want to rewrite these detriments. We say because Mars rules Aries that it's in its detriment when it's in Libra, but we also know that Mars rules Scorpio. And so I kind of think here, this is where Mars starts to recognize the peaceful warrior, the hero. I feel as if the evolved Mars doesn't mind being in Libra at all. Saturn is exalted in Libra, and we already talked about how Saturn and Capricorn, Mars, and Aries are also cooperative. So your ruling planet naturally being exalted in the 7th house makes me feel as if when Mars moves into Libra, which is actually your 10th house of career, of your public status, of your social status, of your reputation, of leadership, and the house you naturally rule. So I'm not so sure anymore. I think the evolved Mars is starting to get how to be more Libra-like, not giving up my power, but standing in harmony and cooperation. Now we see Venus enter Leo. Leo, again, your eighth house of transformation, other people's money, sex, and that psychological twist, the one you don't even know is there that kind of trips us up. But I want to say this because the awareness of what you want in the way of financial resources and what you want to build can really make, again, even though this is an opposition, it could very much be like somebody says, I don't know if you Capricorn rising are really valuable. I don't know, Teri, are you the best astrologer? I don't know, Teri, are you the best psychic? I don't know, I've seen better. And I'm like, great, go see better. I'm good with what I am. That's what you're going to be required to do, is own your skills. And then in doing so, Pluto will sort of bring forth the clients who will best be served, or the situations that will best be served for your gifts and your talents, so that you can capitalize on those financially. Because if you, Capricorn, don't see it in the material world, it doesn't count. That's just how you roll. Okay. Now September sees our second eclipse season. This time we're fully on the Virgo Pisces axis. We've got our full moon total lunar eclipse in Pisces, your third house, and a new moon solar eclipse in Virgo in your ninth house. Saturn will re-enter Pisces in September. This will be the last time, and it will go all the way to 25 degrees before it moves forward. Uranus is now retrograding. It got to 1 degree of Gemini. Again, this is your sixth house of your mental stresses, your health, your pets. And it's going to retrograde back into your fifth house of Taurus for the last time before it actually moves forward I believe it's 2026, but I'll get there. Okay. In October, Jupiter is in Cancer and Saturn is retrograde in Pisces, and they're making a trine. We experienced a square earlier in the year when they were both moving forward. The trine is a harmonious aspect. It's considered very favorable and supportive of endeavors. So here, Jupiter in Cancer in your seventh house is being supported by Saturn reviewing how am I being compassionate and empathetic and creative and romantic and I always think of Pisces as sort of this most such an idealistic potential, and yet at the same time, when the bubbles popped, Pisces can feel very broken and very invisible and very hurt and want to go and hide under a little rock somewhere. And so here, I think this is where there's some sort of reconciliation has come in, where Saturn representing your history and potentially your history that has been painful. Because I want to offer it this way. You could have had a childhood in the third house of Pisces where the kids in school didn't really care about you or like you, or they only liked you for, there could have been something like that was disruptive in your childhood that you've just taken with you throughout your life, not even realizing it. So here something's going to have an opportunity to open up. And Jupiter in Cancer, that maternal, warm, loving, healing energy is fostered there. We see Neptune retrograde back into Pisces, conjunct Saturn. They're just traveling together. They're never more than a few degrees away from each other for the whole year. So this is a very significant conversation and will be playing like music in an elevator in the background of your life. Pluto will go direct in October at 1 degree of Aquarius in your second house. In November, Mercury will retrograde for the third time, this time at 6 degrees of Sagittarius, which is your 12th house, back to 20 degrees of Scorpio in your 11th house. This will take place from November 9th until the 29th. And, we haven't seen much action there in your 12th and 11th houses, but this retrograde will have you be reviewing more likely a lot of your belief systems, with Jupiter being in such play in your Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. We also see Jupiter retrograde from 25 degrees of Cancer to 15 degrees of Cancer from November 11th, 2025 until March 11th, 2026. I think this retrograde, just in brief, is really about reviewing business deals, reviewing if I'm expanding and if I'm making the kind of money, am I endeavoring the kind of I don't even think Jupiter has to do with any sort of education or travel here. It has to do with money, making money, building money, getting the right clientele, putting yourself in the right network, something like that's going to be going on. And I think that's terrific. I think that Jupiter, even in retrograde in Cancer, is happy. I'm exalted here. I'll hang out. They treat me great in this house, so no problem. Okay, then Saturn goes direct at the end of November. This is November 28th, and this is at 25 degrees of Pisces. And then in December, Saturn and Jupiter will trine one more time. This time, Jupiter is retrograde. And I really think that, again, we're going to see the same type of dynamics. Jupiter is now in Cancer, and Saturn is still in Pisces. And this is just, I think it's dreamy. I think it's supportive of how do I want to feel more. I wanted to use the word alive. We come to home to feel safe. We come home as a harbor somewhere where we feel that whatever's inside that house should make us feel welcomed. And I think that's really going to come into your awareness, what you want in that way. And then finally, in December, Neptune will go direct at 29 degrees of Pisces. I'm not sure that it gets out of Pisces until next year. I didn't look into 2026, but so hovering in those last degrees, I think, is again just another very significant energy of asking me where I am connecting with the divinity inside of myself, building upon my strong spiritual and religious foundations. And if indeed I have been using spirits in some way to escape the harshness of my life. Because if my mind, third house Pisces, has been going, running amok with my fears and responsibilities, and I haven't been, achieving enough or doing enough, it's not going to be an easy time because it's going to make you want to feel like, I just want to escape. And, but you channel that into spiritual dynamics, and then there's a wisdom in whatever hills you have to climb. All right, that's it for my Capricorn Rising for 2025. My name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer. Please look for your monthly love and money tarot card readings. There's also monthly horoscopes for you all, which we go into more detail with some of the more personal planets will be addressed in those monthlies. And join me live on Sunday mornings after the new year. Where we'll be resuming our lives on Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And this is where I do tarot card readings, and we get the angels' advice for traversing the transits in the week ahead. All right, everybody, be sure to hit that notification bell. There's going to be lots of content coming out. See you soon. Bye-bye. Happy New Year.